The silent arrival. The Galactic Alliance was having a normal day. The trade reports were stable, the borders were quiet, and the Senate was planning another celebration. Everything felt peaceful, until one small beep changed it all. A low-ranking officer in the central monitoring station noticed something strange. A fleet was entering Alliance space, silent, unmarked, and large. At first, they thought it was a glitch. The fleet had no identification codes, no response to hails, and no flight path filed. But then the scans confirmed it. 12 massive ships heading straight toward the central systems. No banners, no colors, just cold metal and pure silence. The officer ran to his superior. "Sir, unidentified fleet approaching from Sector 19 Theta," he said, voice shaking. The commander looked confused. "Is it pirates?" "No, sir," the officer said. "These ships, they're not from any known design, not even black market." The alert level was raised and messages were sent to nearby planets, but no one knew who the ships belonged to. Then, someone whispered a name that had been laughed at in the Senate for years, a name most believed was weak, isolated, and primitive. Earth. Silence filled the room. The commander's face went pale. "Send word to the Senate," he said slowly. "Tell them, the humans are here." On the capital planet, the news hit like thunder. Senators gathered in panic. "We gave them peace," one shouted. "We ignored them, not harmed them," said another. But one old alien, scarred from the past war, stood and said coldly, "You didn't harm them, but someone did." The first human fleet didn't stop. It moved quietly, like a hunter stalking prey. Alliance ships tried to block their way, but one by one, they were shut down without firing a single human shot. Human tech jammed their systems, turned their engines cold, blinded their sensors, and then, still without a word, the human fleet kept going. In the middle of this chaos was Admiral Raal, one of the most respected generals of the Alliance. He stared at the screen showing the human fleet's slow, unstoppable movement. "How are they this strong?" he asked. No one had an answer. "Did we ever learn what they built in the Sol system after we cut contact?" he asked again. Silence. One officer said, "We thought they were recovering from the last war." "They were," the admiral said, "but they recovered and evolved." The Senate finally decided to send a message, a peaceful greeting, an invitation to talk, but the human fleet didn't reply. Instead, they deployed small drones across every path leading to their ships. Drones that scanned, blocked, and even hijacked Alliance signals. It wasn't war yet, but it was clear Earth didn't come to negotiate. Then it happened. A human voice echoed through every Alliance channel. It was not angry, not loud, not cruel. It was calm, controlled, and terrifyingly clear. "You took what was ours. You hurt what we loved. Now we return, and we are not alone." That was it. No names, no warnings, just that simple message. And then the human fleet stopped, right at the edge of the capital system, waiting. Inside the Alliance command room, fear was growing fast. Admiral Raal stood frozen. He turned to the other leaders and said, "We thought they were gone, but they were watching, learning, and now they've come back with a message." "What message?" someone asked. Raal looked out the window toward the black space where the human fleet floated silently. He took a deep breath and said, "The message is this. You should have finished us when you had the chance." Ships from across the Alliance were ordered to gather, defenses were raised, shields activated, war rooms filled. But deep down, every commander, every officer, and every politic, Ian felt the same thing, dread, because Earth had returned, and this was only their first fleet. What came next would not be a warning, it would be a lesson, written in fire and steel, and the galaxy was not ready. One fleet was enough. The city of Saran 9 never expected to fall. It was the Alliance's most advanced fortress world, a planet with 5 defense rings, 4 moon-based cannons, and a sky shield so strong it could stop a meteor. Generals once said, "If Saran 9 falls, the galaxy falls." But Saran 9 didn't fall in weeks, it didn't fall in days, it fell in 6 hours. The first human fleet didn't even slow down. It approached with silent power, like a shadow blocking the sun. The defenders prepared, commanders screamed orders, weapons lit the skies, but Earth didn't respond. No words, No threats, just movement, cold and final. A single shot was fired by a human battleship. One beam, almost invisible, and the sky shield shut down. Just like that, the soldiers on Saron 9 stood frozen. How? One of them whispered. They cracked the grid without touching it, another said. Then came the drones. Tiny black machines, faster than light. They didn't shoot. They didn't burn. They infected. The defense AI shut down. The targeting systems blinked red. Every gun pointed in the wrong direction. Saron 9 was blind, deaf, and defenseless. Admiral Raal watched the live feed from his command ship, his jaw clenched as he saw the mighty Saron 9 defenses collapse without a fight. This can't be real, one of his aides said. They're using tech we've never seen before, another replied. Raal didn't speak. He knew something deeper was happening. This wasn't just military power. This was psychological warfare. Earth wanted them to see, to watch their strongest worlds fall like paper. On the Senate floor, fear turned into panic. Senators screamed for answers. Why are they attacking? We gave them space. But the truth was simple. They forgot Earth. For years, the Alliance ignored the human homeworld. They said Earth was a backwater rock, too emotional, too primitive, too wild. They didn't know Earth was listening, learning, building. The second wave hit Saron 9's moons. All 4 were destroyed in under a minute. Not bombed, not shattered, erased. Human weapons folded space inside the moons, crushing them from within. It was science that should not exist, but Earth made it real. The surviving defenders tried to escape. They never made it. Human ships used something the Alliance never believed in. Gravity spears, invisible weapons that caught ships mid-flight, crushed them, or turned them inside out. Only one human voice was heard on all channels, just one sentence, spoken with no anger, no hate. Saron 9 has paid, the rest will follow, unless you remember who we are. The message wasn't a threat, it was a warning, and the galaxy finally understood. This wasn't revenge, it wasn't justice, it was balance. At the edge of Alliance territory, smaller species began to flee. Cargo ships changed course. Colonies were abandoned. One ambassador from a minor race said, "If one human fleet can do this, what will 10 do?" No one answered, because no one knew. Even the oldest minds in the Galactic Council had no solution. The humans weren't using brute force. They were using fear. They didn't want to destroy everything. They wanted everyone to feel what Earth once felt. Small, helpless, forgotten. Admiral Raal stood before the War Council. He looked at the map of burning worlds. He pointed to a symbol, Earth's fleet mark, a simple circle with 3 dots, and said, "This is not a war. This is a message. They're showing us what one fleet can do." A younger commander asked, "Then what happens when they send more?" Raal looked into the void and whispered, "Then we stop being a galaxy and start being a memory." One fleet was enough to rock the walls, enough to crush pride, enough to remind the stars. Earth has returned, but Earth wasn't finished, not even close. 10 more fleets waited behind the shadows, and they were ready to move. The Empire's greatest mistake. Years ago, deep in the cold silence of space, the Empire found something strange, a crashed ship on the edge of their territory. Inside were 5 humans, barely alive. Instead of helping them, the Empire made a decision. A mistake that would burn their name into history. They didn't call Earth, they didn't ask questions. They took the humans and locked them in cages. Scientists were called, machines were built, and the experiments began. They wanted to know how humans survived so many death worlds, why their bones were stronger, why their brains resisted mental scans, why their hearts refused to give up. The scientists treated the humans like animals. They cut, burned, injected, and recorded. They told themselves it was for science, but in truth it was for control. They feared what they didn't understand. One of those humans was a scientist. His name was Dr. Elias Vorn. He didn't scream, didn't cry, he only watched. And he remembered every face, every voice, every pain. He made a promise in his mind. One day, Earth will know what you did to me. He never got to send a signal, but someone else did. A cleaning droid, hacked by his daughter across the stars. She was only 9 when he left Earth, but she had a mind sharper than any machine, and when she saw her father's final message, she didn't cry, she built. Years passed. Earth didn't send complaints, didn't file reports. They built silently. They stopped broadcasting to the galaxy. They closed their gates and disappeared. Everyone thought Earth was hiding, but they were preparing for a storm. And when it came, it was not for victory, it was for reckoning. Admiral Rael finally got the report. It was hidden deep in the Alliance archives, marked as low threat. But as he read, his hands trembled. It was a full file of the 5 captured humans. What was done to them, where they were held, and how none of them ever returned. He stared at the last page, a blurry photo of a young human girl, unknown subject, daughter of Elias Vorn. Below that, one sentence, presumed harmless. That was the moment Rael realized the war was never about planets, ships, or power. It was personal. This was not Earth attacking. This was a daughter avenging her father. He turned to the council and said, "We didn't just start a war, we raised a monster and gave her a reason to burn the stars." In the human fleet, the lead AI was called Nova, but it wasn't just a machine, it was guided by the girl, now grown, now powerful. She didn't give orders out of hate, she gave them out of memory, and her fleet followed without question. She remembered every scar on her father's face, every scream in the background of his final message. And now, the time had come. The human fleet turned toward the planet where her father died. It wasn't a capital, it wasn't a military base. It was a research world, full of labs, data centers, and cold rooms that once held prisoners. As they approached, the Empire sent a message. "We apologize for the past." The girl responded with 5 words. "You had your chance. Goodbye." Then the sky turned black, the stars vanished, and the planet's surface was turned into glass. No weapons fired, just a pulse, one that shut down everything in an instant. In the Senate, panic returned. "We didn't know," they cried. "We didn't approve those actions." But Earth didn't care about their excuses. They remembered. The biggest mistake the Empire ever made wasn't the war. It was thinking no one would come for 5 forgotten humans. But Earth came, and they didn't bring speeches. They brought fleets. One senator whispered in fear, "If this is what one daughter did, what happens when the others rise?" There was no answer, only silence, because the galaxy now knew the truth. You don't hurt a human and walk away. Not anymore, not ever again. 10 fleets, no mercy. The sky above the galaxy's core turned red, not from sunrise, not from war yet, but from the arrival of something that shouldn't exist. 10 human fleets, appearing in silence, all at once. No sound, no warning, just 10 shadows blocking the stars. Every scanner blinked red, every system screamed. One fleet had shattered Saron 9, now 10 were here, and they weren't stopping. In the command center of the Galactic core, officers yelled over each other. How did they move all 10 fleets without detection? Did they use wormholes? Cloaking? No one had answers. Even the top minds of the Empire were silent, because no empire, no alliance, no species had ever moved 10 battle fleets in one synchronized strike. Across 30 systems, the same scene played out. People looked up and saw massive human ships covering the sky. Each ship carried no flags, no symbols, only black hulls and glowing red cores. On every planet, screens lit up with the same image, a girl, now older, her eyes calm, her voice soft. She spoke just once. "You had time to apologize, you had time to stop, but now, time is gone." That was the last peaceful message Earth would send. The attacks began, not with missiles, not with fire, but with silence. Communications cut, navigation disabled, AI systems locked. One planet's sky just blinked off, like someone turned off the sun. Ships lost control, satellites died, drones crashed mid-air. Then came the real strike. Orbital strikes made of compressed gravity, not explosions, implosions. Cities vanished inward, crushed into black dust. There was no debris, only holes where worlds once stood. Admiral Rael watched in horror. His screen showed 20 planets under siege. Human ships moved in perfect formation. No hesitation, no delay. "This isn't battle," he whispered. "This is a funeral." The war room was silent. Even the bravest commanders had nothing to say. Earth wasn't trying to win. They had already won. Now they were erasing memories. The Senate begged for surrender. Messages were sent to Earth. "We surrender. We'll give you everything. Just stop." But Earth didn't respond, because Earth didn't want territory. They didn't want slaves. They wanted truth. And the truth was, The galaxy had become too arrogant. They thought humans were weak. They thought they could take without paying. Now, they were paying in stars. In one system, a planet called Kareth 4 tried to resist. It launched all its defense ships at once, 100,000 fighters in a perfect arc. They didn't reach halfway. The human fleet released mirror drones, small, silver, and impossible to track. Each drone copied its target's shape and then deleted it. Within minutes, nothing remained but silence and falling ash. And then the humans left. They didn't even land. They just came, destroyed, and moved on. A single child stood in the ruins of her city. She stared at the sky as the human ships vanished. She was not afraid. She whispered, "They were not monsters. They were angry." That one sentence spread across the galaxy. Because it was true, Earth hadn't attacked for power. Earth attacked because it was done waiting. Back on Earth, no one cheered, no one celebrated. They watched the screens, expressionless, because this wasn't victory, it was a message. Never again. The 10 fleets didn't stop. They had a list. Names of planets, stations, leaders, systems, each one tied to the past. Each one tied to pain. Admiral Raal stood at the edge of the war map. He marked each fallen world with a red circle. There were too many circles. One young soldier asked, "Why are they doing this?" Raal replied, "Because we taught them mercy was weakness." The room went cold because they all knew the next target, the Empire's capital, and Earth, was already coming. No peace, no talk, just 10 fleets with no mercy. The last stand fails. They called it the Hammer Protocol, a final defense plan buried for centuries, a last weapon built during the ancient wars, so powerful, so dangerous that even the Empire swore never to use it again. But now, with 10 human fleets destroying system after system, the Empire had no choice left. Inside a hidden base deep within a dead star, a key was turned, engines groaned, walls shook, and something terrible woke up. The Stellar Hammer, a weapon the size of a moon. It could bend gravity, split planets, crush suns. One hit from it could end a solar system. It was not a ship, not a gun. It was extinction. The Emperor stood in silence as he watched the Stellar Hammer leave its dock. His generals stood beside him, hopeful for the first time in weeks. "This will stop the humans," one said. "This will remind them who rules the stars," another added. But the Emperor didn't speak. He just stared at the stars and whispered, "If this fails, then nothing will stand." The hammer moved fast. It locked onto the lead human ship, the command vessel of Fleet 1. Every telescope in the galaxy turned to watch. People gathered in cities, on ships, even in bunkers. This was the Empire's last stand. Everything came down to this one shot. The stellar hammer charged. The sky turned white. Energy filled the void, and then it fired. A beam thicker than a planet's orbit raced across space. It struck the human command ship directly. The galaxy held its breath. For 1 second, the ship vanished in light. For another second, the beam kept burning. Then the light faded, and the ship was still there, untouched. Everyone froze. "No," the Emperor whispered. The human command ship slowly turned. Its hull was glowing, but unbroken. Then it did something no one expected. It healed, the damage reversed, the hull became smooth again. Not metal, not armor, but living tech. Something beyond anything the Empire had seen. A single message echoed across every screen. A calm voice said, "Your last weapon is fired. Now it is our turn." From the edge of the battlefield, Fleet 10 advanced. It didn't rush, didn't shout, just moved like a tidal wave of silence. Human ships opened, not to launch missiles, but to release gravity webs, each web wrapped around part of the stellar hammer, not pulling it, but folding it. The weapon bent inward, its engines twisted into nothing, its core collapsed like paper under fire. In 1 minute, the most powerful weapon in the galaxy was gone. Panic hit the Empire's high command. Officers abandoned posts, generals screamed into broken comms. Nothing worked. Their strongest move had failed, and now the humans had no reason to stop. On the lead ship, the girl behind Nova watched quietly. She didn't cheer, she didn't speak. She simply nodded and said, "One more name crossed off the list." Her officers looked at her. She had grown from a scientist's daughter to the most feared strategist in history. She carried no rank, only purpose, and that was more than enough. Admiral Raoul saw it too. The death of the stellar hammer was not just a loss, it was a message. We are immune to your past. He turned to his remaining staff and said, "This is not about power, it's about memory." Someone asked, "Do we surrender?" Raoul replied, "They're not listening to surrender anymore. We had our chance, and we wasted it." The Emperor stood alone in the war room. All screens were dark, all systems failing. He took one breath and whispered, "We never should have touched them." Because now, Earth wasn't just winning, Earth was erasing, not with hate, but with precision, and 10 fleets moved like one, with no mercy, no pause, and no fear. The broadcast that froze the galaxy. Across the galaxy, people stopped moving. Not because of war, not because of fear, but because of a single sound, a child's voice. It didn't come through the news. It didn't come from governments. It broke into every device, every channel, every system. From the richest planet to the coldest mining rock, one message played, unstoppable, unfiltered, unforgettable. The voice was soft, innocent, and human. She said, "My father was taken. He never came home, so I came instead." In a single moment, the galaxy froze. Pilots let go of their controls, merchants dropped their tools, soldiers lowered their weapons. No alarms, no music, just silence. And the voice of a daughter who remembered, the broadcast wasn't from Earth. It came from every human fleet at once, a coordinated echo sent through dark matter communication. It bypassed encryption, broke through firewall worlds. Even the ancient vault planets received it. The message continued. "I don't hate you. I just don't trust you. Not anymore." In the High Senate, the oldest alien leaders sat motionless. Some had lived for thousands of years, but nothing in all their history matched what they were witnessing. One elder whispered, "She's not just sending a message. She's rewriting the rules." Then the screen changed. Footage played. Raw, painful, real. Video logs of the captured humans, chains, cages, open wounds, a scientist crying, a soldier broken, a father whispering, "Stay strong, little one." The final clip showed the girl, just 9 years old, watching from Earth, her tiny hand pressed to the screen, tears in her eyes. But no fear, only a promise. The message ended with 6 words, words that shook the stars. "You made me, now face me." And then came the fire. 10 fleets moved as one. Systems that had remained untouched were now marked, not for politics, not for power, but Beck. As they were connected to the cover-up, the labs, the guards, the doctors, all of them were on the list. One by one, the ships rained down, not with bombs, but with black pulses, EMP storms that erased all technology. Civilizations collapsed in seconds, not killed, but turned back to Stone Age. Earth could have destroyed them. Instead, they left them helpless, a deeper punishment, living in the ruins of their own pride. Across the galaxy, movements began. Alien citizens protested, students marched, low-level officers refused orders. They had seen the truth. The broadcast had opened a wound, and Earth wasn't the villain anymore. Earth was the mirror. In her command ship, the girl watched the reaction. Nova processed billions of responses. Her officers stood in silence. One asked, "Do we stop now?" She replied, "We pause, we let them feel it, then we finish." The Emperor, now in hiding, received the broadcast too. He watched it alone, the final shot of the little girl standing before a war table, commanding 10 fleets with a voice full of purpose. He leaned back and said, "She didn't bring a war, she brought justice." Even pirates began changing course. They removed Earth ships from their hit lists. Merchants sent gifts toward the Sol system. Some even prayed, not because they feared Earth's power, but because they respected Earth's memory. The galaxy was no longer ruled by politics. It was ruled by one message, one voice, one truth. The past can't be buried because one child might grow up and come digging. And then there was silence. It began with sound explosions, alarms, screams, broadcasts, threats, and then nothing. No voices, no warnings, no music, just a quiet so deep it felt heavy, like the universe itself had gone cold. The 10 human fleets stopped moving. No new strikes, no final wave. They hovered across the stars, silent giants in the dark. The galaxy waited, bracing for the next hit, but it never came. Earth had gone quiet, not because they were weak, but because they were done. The girl who led the fleet sat alone in her command chair. Screens blinked softly around her. Nova's voice whispered, "All targets completed, retribution complete." She looked out the wide glass window into space. So many stars, so much silence. For the first time in her life, she felt peace. But not the kind you celebrate, the kind that comes after the storm, after the scream, after the justice. Across the galaxy, planets lay quiet. Ruined ships floated in orbit, cities turned off their lights, and leaders sat in fear. Not of death, but of being forgotten. Because Earth didn't claim their worlds, didn't plant flags, didn't declare rule. They erased. And then they watched. Admiral Rahl stood on his station's balcony. He had survived. Not because he ran, but because he stayed quiet. He watched the fall. He saw the girl's message. And now, he saw the silence. "They're not conquerors," he said to no one. "They're reminders." A young officer beside him asked, "What now?" Raal looked up at the human fleets above, still floating like ghosts, and said, "Now we change, or we wait for their return." The High Senate dissolved the next day. No speeches, no ceremony. They simply walked away, because power meant nothing now. The people had seen too much. The truth had burned too deep. New leaders rose, not from bloodlines or armies, but from memory, those who remembered what the galaxy did and what Earth did back, those who said, "Never again," and meant it. On Earth, the girl walked through a quiet garden, no medals, no songs, only wind. She passed a statue of her father, Dr. Elias Vorn, his face calm, his hand raised. Beneath it, a plaque read, "He dreamed of peace, she delivered truth." Nova's voice broke the silence gently. "Fleet recall complete," she nodded. "Tell them to rest." "Where shall we send the ships?" She looked to the sky. "Nowhere," she said. "Let them doctor. If let the stars remember." And so the 10 fleets powered down, their lights dimmed, their engines cooled. No pilots inside, only memory. The ships became monuments, floating in the dark like tombstones for arrogance, each one a warning, each one a lesson, each one silent, and silence became the new law. No more invasions, no more experiments, no more lies hidden in shadows, because everyone knew Earth was watching. And if it ever returned, it would not come with 10 fleets. It would come with one, and that would be enough. Across the stars, children grew up learning the story, not of war, but of a girl who answered pain with purpose, of a planet that chose memory over conquest, of a silence that followed justice. And when they looked up at the 10 drifting ships, they didn't feel fear, they felt something else, respect.